Happy Mother's Day. So my sermon today is the resiliency of a mother. So happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Before I start talking about mothers and God's creation of the woman, I want to talk and say thank you to all the mothers, all the female role models, and all those that make a difference for the future generations. To start my sermon, I want to talk about God's creations. God's creations that are female nurturers, as mothers are nurturers. And we have creations. As I watched a documentary, it's called Our Great National Parks. And 3 of the animals that really caught my attention were these. And the nurturing and the resiliency that they have. As women have resiliency. And mothers are nurturers, and they have strength. So the first one was the sea otter in Monterey Bay. This is out in California. And they would go and they would swim and do the backstroke. They were like Michael Phelps. They do the backstroke to keep their baby nice and warm. So, and the baby is not only nice and warm, the baby is where they have to keep them dry, and they have to also hide them sometimes so they can feed, and they can also, when they're feeding, they hide them and they put them under like a dock, and so the predators don't get to them, and then the sea otter goes and feeds and then nurtures the baby and gives them milk. And then they have to go back for a couple of weeks and keep on doing the backstroke. That's nurturing and caring for the baby. The next one I saw was this, which was really interesting. It was an Indonesian tree monkey, and you can put them in your hand. And a tree monkey is like this. They eat so much fruit that they have to go and jump 20 feet when they eat all the fruit of the village trees. They have to jump 20 feet and their back legs spring out. Pat was here today. She would get up on the third thing and she would show you guys and just spring out. And I also saw Pat this week. She was ordering. Trying to order. She loves the Indonesian tree monkey. She was trying to order on Amazon.com. She thought it was a part of the Amazon. But she doesn't realize it's part of the web page, so you have to talk to her about that. But you can't order extinct animals off of Amazon.com. And she would show you, the tree monkey puts the baby in its arms. They put the baby in the arm, then they have to jump. They're putting themselves and the baby at risk. 20 feet they have to jump. 20 feet. And they're only about the size of 2 pounds in your hand. They jump, and you should see their hind legs. And they catch on. With the baby tucked, they catch on to the branches. And then they feed. And the latest one is the orangutan. The orangutan is so interesting. 8 years that they have to stay with the child. The child has to stay with the mother. 8 years. If you times that by 7, that is 56 years. Could you imagine? It's the time cat and dog years times by 7. 56 years. Could you imagine moving out of your mom's house at 56? That would be terrible. 56, and the orangutan cares for the children for up to 8 years before they can go on their own. Now, Roger Waters, as I talk about the woman now, as we have great woman role models and great mothers. A great mother is a nurturer, caring and resilient, strong and kind. That is the qualities of a great mother. Roger Waters says he's one of the great musicians. He's one of the co-founders of one of the greatest rock bands, Pink Floyd, and he says, I am a musician. My job is easy. All I do is play music. I get off the bus, I get off the plane, I get off the bus, and I play music. But for a mother, day after day after day, they sacrifice so much every day You mothers sacrifice so much, and we are so grateful for that. All your sacrifices. He says, day after day, my job is easy. I just play music. Mothers have to care. They have to change diapers. And my mother will never stop worrying about me until either the day she dies or I die. Mothers don't stop worrying about you. They will be 70. You could be 70 years old and your mother will still worry about you. They will still worry about you. Mothers never stop worrying. That is the innate ability that God gives them. God gives them strength. The resiliency. Now, when we get to this text, Jochebed, who is Moses' mother, there is a role model, his sister, and Moses has two mothers. He has a biological mother, and he has a non-biological mother. And we're going to get to that. But first, I was so blessed to have a great mother. Not only as Moses had two mothers and a role model, his sister, I had two great role models as my sisters that acted like mothers. I really had three mothers. I really still have three mothers, to be honest with you. They get on me like mothers. So I have three mothers. I was fortunate. Some people don't have that. Some people go and they don't have a home life, much of a home life. And the only care and the kindness they get is from the outside of society. So try to be kind, because not everyone was as blessed as I have and had a home life, especially our children. Care for them, love for them, be role models to them. My mom, and I'll tell you this story, is I had two role models, and you'll see a role model that comes into the story. And multiple mothers. Mothers, many families have multiple mothers. But here's a story, and to let you know a little bit about me, and how I had three mothers. My mom and dad went to school night. That's like in October. And they went to the homeroom teacher. And here I am at school night. I was at home. They're at school night. I got a progress report from the teacher in danger of failing in every class except gym. And all you got to do in gym is dress out and be somewhat of a good athlete. And I was an okay athlete. That is all you got to do. I got even a progress report in shop class. So if you want me to make you something, you might not want to call me to make something nice for you, especially out of wood. I got one all of it in every single class except gym. My mom says to my dad, Carl, split it up. You take 4, I'll take 4. And my dad did something smart. He called my oldest sister. He called my oldest sister and tells her, and my oldest sister, she don't take no crap. And he let her know. And then my mom, as they didn't even meet each other in the hall because they went different places, she made an idea. And this is back in the day where you had to put a quarter in and call. You didn't have cell phones like we do now. If you had a cell phone, it was the size of a baseball bat. My mom calls my middle sister and tells her, and my middle sister is home for break at the College of New Jersey, which used to be Trenton State. And she tells her, do not let Stephen leave the house. Do not let him. He is failing every class except gym. Do not let him even make a phone call to me. So my sister comes in. I'm listening to music. She turns the music on. Mom number 3. She comes in. She says, you got to do better in your grades. Mom just called and she's hollering at me. She's only 3 years older, so we would go at it sometimes. I'm like, Suzanne, you're not my mom. Get out of the room. I put back the music. The loud music went back on. I'm like, okay, it's not that bad. I knew I wasn't doing too good at school, man. 8 progress reports out of 9 classes, that's pretty bad. But I'll get through it, somehow. My mom and dad are driving home. And my dad says, let's pull back on Steve. The reason they're going to pull back is because my dad made the decision to call my oldest sister. Again, my oldest sister, Denise, is not taking any crap. I got a phone call. I thought it was my girlfriend. Pick up the phone. Again, it's my girlfriend. And guess who's on the other one? Denise. She tells me this. Mom number 2 tells me, you better get your act together. And she just started her first job. She just graduated from the College of New Jersey. You better get your act together. You better get your grades up. If you even think about, I'm a sophomore, want to think about going to college, you better be better than this. But you're better than this. And she reamed me out from A to Z. And she said, even if I have to come down there and teach you. And she did. A couple times, she did come down. And learning off of her, not only did I have her and my brother-in-law, Keith, not only did I have to find the answer, my grades got much better because my parents pushed me and my two sisters pushed me. And I was blessed by that, the role models. But my sister and my brother-in-law would come down and teach me. Not only did I have to find the answer, I not only had to find the answer and tell them why, I had to tell them why I got the answer and how I got the answer. And sometimes with algebra, to remember those formulas, it was difficult. History, it was okay. I could figure out and just say, this is why it's the answer. Because of this war or that war. When you got the math, I couldn't remember the formulas. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare when they taught me. But they cared about me, and I was fortunate. And if you are fortunate to have a great mother, be grateful and thankful. I had 3 of them, 2 great role models. And here in this text, you see 2 mothers. Jochebed, who is Moses' real mother. And then the other one is Pharaoh's daughter, who her name is, she's got 4 names. Her name is Bethah. And she's got 4 names, I'll use Bethah. And here's the problem. In Israel, the wives were having so many children. Pharaoh, the Egyptian king, was so worried that because they're enslaving the Israelites, they were so worried, he was so worried that they would have so many people in the power and numbers, the Israelites would overtake Egypt, and they couldn't enslave them anymore and have the barbaric institution of slavery. So he does this. He's a monster. He says, kill every, he even tells the midwives, kill every baby boy. Every baby boy. And this is what Jochebed, Moses' biological mother, has to deal with. And she goes and she puts Moses into, after 3 months she hides him. Finally, the Egyptians are closing in. After 3 months she puts him into a weaved basket. The finest things so the baby will float. And puts him on the Nile and hopes for a better life. That's what mothers do. They hope and they put their children, and they're selfless, that their children will have a better life. And they care about their children. They put their children in front of themselves. They're selfless. And she puts him on a Nile. But a role model, who we find out later, is like I had sisters that were role models. Moses had a sister who was a role model. She's watching this whole thing go down. And she's watching it. And she's staying by. And she sees Pharaoh's daughter bathing. Bethah was bathing. And Pharaoh calls on her slave girl and tells her, get the basket and I want to see what's in it. And sure enough, she sees that it's a baby, Hebrew baby boy. And her father wanted to kill them. So she takes the baby. And Moses' sister, Miriam, who we find out later, what happens is she goes and she tells Bethah, she says, I'm going to get and nurse a baby. Go get a mother to nurse and bring her to you. And she says, okay. So she gets her mother, and her mother comes back. And when her mother comes back, she nurses her biological baby, Moses. And that's what she does. She was nursing her biological baby. And Moses has 2 mothers. And after the baby is grown and well-nourished and had enough, as a child, Jochebed has to give the baby back to Bethah, Pharaoh's daughter. And could you imagine that? You have to give your baby back. And you give your baby back, but she knew that this baby would be part of royalty. And it would be a better life. And that's what mothers do. They put their other children in front to have a better life. They sacrifice themselves so the children can have better lives. And so she gave the baby over. And Pharaoh's daughter raised Moses in royalty. So you probably wondered, why did Pharaoh kill this baby boy that his daughter is raising? He was Hebrew. He was killing every baby boy that was Hebrew, worried about the numbers. 3 theories here. Let's get theoretical. The first one is this. Maybe Pharaoh didn't know that he was Hebrew. Highly unlikely. The second one is this. He just wanted his daughter to be happy, to raise a child, even though the baby was Hebrew. And the third one is, he wasn't worried about one Hebrew child. He was more worried about the power in the numbers to take over. To take over is the Israelites would take over the power of the Egyptians, to take over powers of Pharaoh's ruling. It was a threat, and one baby couldn't do that. But where Pharaoh makes his mistake is right here. He underestimates the power of God. Underestimates the power of God. You cannot underestimate the power of God. And through the power of God, he takes one Hebrew baby boy and has him free the Israelites as they go to the Red Sea. There's 10 plagues. They go to the Red Sea. And through the power of God, where Pharaoh makes his mistake, he underestimates the power of God. And Moses goes to the Red Sea, puts the staff in, it parts, and the Egyptians try to come, and it goes together, and all the Egyptians die as the Israelites go through, and they are free. They are free. And for 40 years, Moses takes them under God and the strength and power of God. You cannot underestimate the power of God. For 40 years, he takes them to the promised land. He doesn't go into the promised land. Joshua goes into the promised land. He takes them to the promised land in freedom. Underestimating the power of God. Through the nurturing and care of 2 mothers caring for Moses and a role model of Miriam, who will come up in the Bible later. So you may have more than one mother. You may have a bunch of role models and not have a mother. But you got to be grateful and thankful for that. And I want to bring up a couple mothers. As mothers, I've been watching in war-torn countries, and the governments are corrupt, but they go and they do what they can, and they put themselves and the children at stake to have a better life for the future generations and their future children. They put their whole self and their children on risk. I was reading an article about the Ukrainian women who are leaving the Ukraine, war-torn country. Russia invaded. Their family is fighting a war, and they're leaving. And they went to Poland, and Poland took them in as refugees. And in Warsaw, which is the capital of Poland, and these mothers are taking care of their children. But they also have to work now. And they have to, they're in a culture. Family is back fighting the war. They're worried about that. They're in a culture they're not used to. There's a language barrier. They can't speak the language between Ukrainian and Polish. And they're trying to work and fit in, and the children have to try to assimilate and fit in too. And it's very hard on the children. Did you imagine this? But they want a better life. They got the children out of there so they're safe and can have a better life in Poland. That is the selfless care and the resiliency of a mother to give strength, to be able to go out and change and to work, and also not only to work, but get their kids into schooling, and they have to get them and worry about their family back in Ukraine fighting. That is a lot, and that is the strength and power of God. You cannot underestimate the power of God and the resiliency of a mother and the resiliency of a female role model and nurturers, as it takes a village to raise a child. Also, I met somebody that has gone through somewhat of a similar situation. And she and mothers will do this. They will take the chances. She lost her career because she knew a dictator would come in. A dictator that is friends with Vladimir Putin now. She foresaw. She was so smart. She foresaw what was going to happen to her country, and she got her and her daughter out of the country before this dictator could come out, and she was able to come to the United States. Able to come to the United States in the free world. She didn't speak any English. She came with a suitcase in one hand and her daughter in the other hand, and didn't speak a lick of English. That is the sacrifice and the resiliency of a mother. Didn't speak any English, and she assimilated into the society. It took her a while. She eventually became a citizen, along as well as her daughter. And her daughter now is reaping the benefits of being in the free world because of this mother's sacrifice. She lost her career. She had to start all over again. She had a good career. But her daughter is reaping the benefits of being in the free world and not under a dictator. In this church, and we're villagers, it takes a village to raise a child. We all have helped raise 2 families in here, helped to raise 2 families. I'm going to let you know, and I'm going to sit down. I've been up here for a while. The first one I want to mention, that you guys know, and I'm not going to name names, is the first one is this. Mother had a child who was premature, and the daughter was born. And they found out that she had cerebral palsy. And her and her great husband were taking care of the child. They were taking care of the child, and she had problems getting around, and then the mother got pregnant again. And they were excited, and the second child also was born premature and had cerebral palsy. Because of this mother's resilience and the love of this mother and her husband and this, you guys in this church, you have turned these 2 young women that are ladies now, you have turned them into lights that light up the world. They are a beacon of light. And not only are they role models, female role models for the future generation, they're also role models for those with disabilities. And also when you talk to them, they are role models for not only children, but adults. They are amazing people. They are true beacons of light. And you, Osborne Baptist Church, help to raise them. The second family is I respect this woman and her husband so much. Her baby was born. I tried to get the story straight. 45 minutes, the baby wasn't breathing. The first time she saw her baby was through her husband's phone. She got a picture of the baby with her husband's phone. 4 days. This baby was born on February 9th, 2020. 4 days. It was the first time she touched the skin of her baby. And for 2 weeks, was the first time she held her baby. 2 weeks, could you imagine that? 2 weeks, that's a resiliency. The faith of our mothers, as we sang faith of our mothers. Faith of our mothers, Christian faith, gave her the resiliency to hold her. They had to wait 2 weeks to hold her baby. And for 5 months, they had to go to another state. And when they went to another state, they didn't know what would happen to their child. 5.5 months, they finally took their baby home. The doctor said this: we don't know the kind of quality of life your child, your baby boy, will have. We don't know the quality of life. You guys know, you help raise these villagers, because it takes a village to raise a child. This mother and this father weaned the baby off with a feeding tube. Baby is now walking, talking, and running. Walking, talking, and running. How can you say there isn't a God? This baby is walking, talking, and running. How can you say there isn't a God? And the resiliency of this mother. And I'm going to leave you with these 3 questions. Happy Mother's Day to mothers, female role models, nurturers, and villagers, as we are all villagers, as it takes a villager to raise a family. Here's the 3 questions I want you to ask. Moses' name as Bethel came up with her name. That is Pharaoh's daughter came up with the name, not the original mother. It means to draw up, as you said that in the text, the last verse 10. To draw up or to pull up. That's where Moses' name comes from. It's to draw up or pull up as he was in the water. My question to you is, who drew you up or pulled you up to make you who you are today? What female or role model or mother pulled you up or drew you up? And they may be deceased, but you can still give thanks to them. And you have to give thanks to mothers because they're sacrificing so much and they're selfless and they're caring and they're kind. Who pulled you up or drew you up? The second question, some people may not be able to answer that. You may not be able to answer all three of these. The third one you should be able to answer. The second one is, who will you draw up and pull up to make the future generations and world better? Who will you pull up and draw up to make future generations better? Who are you pulling up and drawing up? As many mothers are sacrificing it all to care for their children, for a better future for their children, and a better future for other people's children. As it takes a village to raise a child. And the third question is this, the most important: how do mothers, nurturers, female role models, and villagers, how do you get through the dangers, toils, and snares, all the trials and tribulations? You get through it the same way Moses got through it, through the power of God. You don't underestimate the strength and power of God. Through two women, he had who raised Moses. Through the strength of God, faith in our mothers, and resiliency, and that will get you through the dangers, toils, and snares. And the question is, where does your strength come from? It comes from Mother God. That is the answer. Mother God, and you got to give thanks to Mother God. So give thanks to Mother God. That's where your strength comes from. I answered it for you. Mother God, as God, don't put him in a box, has both male qualities, he's a protector, and he also has female qualities. As a nurturer, it's Mother God and Father God. He's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He's omnipotent, all powerful, all knowing. He's got qualities of both. He's both Father and Mother God. You have to thank Mother God for the strength to get you through the dangers, toils, and snares. Again, who pulled you up or drew you up? Who are you pulling up or drawing up? And where did you get the strength from? You got it from Mother God. Through dangers, toils, and snares, your mothers are even more resilient than ones that have faith. Faith of our mothers in the strength and power of God. And Pharaoh underestimated the power of God. You cannot underestimate the power of God. And you got to give thanks to Mother God. Through dangers, toils, and snares, that is your strength. Dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. It was grace that made me safe. And grace will lead me home. Happy Mother's Day.